So, welcome to Sumit Johar, CIO of BlackLine.
Thank you. Thank you, Mala.
I will let you introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Sumit Johar. I don't know if I met any one of you, in the past or not. I'm CIO at BlackLine. I think this is my second time coming to Mala's event. And the best part of, coming to Mala's event, and number one, I get to learn whatever is happening in the world of, empowering women. And sometimes I feel like, if I can be a part of it, even a little bit, I score some extra brownie points with my daughter and my wife. So there's always that extra advantage. But very nice to meet you all. Um, I represent a company called BlackLine. We sell to we're a SaaS solution provider to finance organizations across the world. 2,000 employees, 700 million in revenue. It's a decent sized company headquartered in LA, and we sell to the most conservative customers out there. I say that because I know you guys are all working in the field of AI. Probably we'll talk more about AI. And the challenge that I'm really enjoying right now working for this company is how do you make AI work where there's absolutely no scope for hallucinations, no scope for 99.9% accuracy. It does not work for finance organizations, right? Highly regulated environment where things have to be absolutely predictable, explainable, etc. Right? So that's the problem we are trying to solve for our customers.
Very fascinating. I actually lost a customer when I was running my last product company as a founder because of this problem. I couldn't prove that my AI is not hallucinating, and we were cutting your costs, and they were afraid. So, very interesting. And let's get back to that. I'd love to first hear about your journey.
Sure.
How did you start off? Where did you begin, and where was your middle? And this is your, CIO is where you're going to be, or where are you going next? Yeah.
Um, well, first of all, I grew up in the northern part of India. Anytime I tell where I was born, most people don't know where this place is, but everybody knows what this place is. So I grew up in this little city called Kurukshetra. Most people know it because of its mythological connection, the Battle of Mahabharata. At times, people come and ask me, I heard the soil is still red over there because of whatever happened. Well, I can all assure you, if before you ask me this question, there is no human blood, no amount of human blood that can keep the soil of any land, red for that long. It's been 10,000 years, so no, that's not the case. Anyways, that's where I was born. I ended up actually working for a few years in southern part of India, more than where I was, brought up. Worked for a few consulting companies like TCS, Infosys, Wipro, and then I ran out of consulting companies, so I decided to come here. Um, my path, to Mala's question about my journey, sometimes I get, this question asked, how did I design to be or the CIO, or how did that path look like? I can tell you very clearly there was no path. This was not by design. This was definitely not by me realizing early part of my career that I want to be a CIO. Nothing like that. I was just an engineer. I was just a technical person, and I was helping solve problems just like anybody else. And it just so happened that you know when I was taking my first job here in the United States, this was this company called TIBCO Software, and they said there are two roles for you. I was a programmer. They said, hey, we can make you a programmer in an engineering organization where you build products, or we can put you in the IT organization where also you will just you'll use the same product but for solving business problems. And the only reason I did not take the engineering role is because I was doing the product management, product development role for quite a while when I was working for consulting companies. So I thought, why not try something different? I did not realize how different it's going to be. And um, what I started really enjoying is that working for a IT organization allowed me to work closely with business teams. I had no idea how much I would enjoy solving real business problems. It started giving me visibility. It started giving me things that my friends were trying to learn by doing, like, say, an MBA or through education. I thought I was learning while working closely with finance organizations, marketing organizations, sales organizations, and I just fell in love with that. So rest just came through the regular growth. You do well, you get promoted, you become a CIO.
It's beautiful, right? If he's fallen in love with the journey and it's certain when. And TIBCO is a very special place. I used to work at TIBCO myself.
You did?
I did.
Well,
And
now
when
we have two companies.
I know. And when I interviewed, I was a software engineer.
Okay.
And when I interviewed, they said, do you want to be a product marketing manager or do you want to be a pre sales engineer? And I was like, okay, now what are these roles even? You know, that was TIBCO for you.
Very similar to my story.
TIBCO was that, you know, in those years, TIBCO was that way, where they just gave you these endless opportunities to experiment and play when you're really young. And that was very curious, I think.
I don't know how long back it was. I think I was there. This is the company that I worked the longest so far. I finished just less than 10 years.
Yeah.
And I was there from 2007 to almost end of 16.
2000, I was there 2006 through 9.
Oh, so we passed.
We must have done that together.
Oh, okay, all right.
Maybe you addressed some of my service tickets because I was a new product marketer struggling. I picked product marketing because my husband's in sales. I don't know. But clearly, even the early days, I was a very salesy person, I think. That landed me on the other side of the engineering track, which I'm truly grateful for. I didn't want to sit in the corner and fix bugs. But then, so then what happened? Tell us that step where you landed up as CIO. That's where I think most people struggle. It's easy to get to director, stay there, get to VP perhaps, and then what takes you into the C-suite?
So I do get this question asked a lot, and I know a lot of people who are at the cusp of it, but just sometimes does not happen. Again, I don't have any magic formula to share with you, but I can only tell you how it happened with me. When I left TIBCO, I was always a pro risk person. I was always taking chances in my career. So when I left TIBCO, I was looking to take on more responsibility, even if that means it's going to be for a smaller company. So when I left TIBCO, I joined MobileIron, a company again I did not know much about.
Yeah.
But they were giving me additional responsibilities, where I was responsible for a big part of running the IT organization. Not everything. I had no clue about cybersecurity side, something that I ended up, learning. I'm really thankful to work to my 4 years at MobileIron as a cybersecurity company. I learned everything that I learned about cybersecurity was at that company. Anyway, so they gave me the role to manage all business applications. I was ultimately, I think a year later, I became a VP. And then it just so happened that probably I was doing my job right. And, the other leader within IT organization who was responsible for infrastructure and security, he either left or for some reason that job became available. And suddenly I was just called to my CFO's office and said, he's not working here, and now you're responsible for all of that. That is not, I was not given the CIO's role. I was just given an additional responsibility. So from VP of applications to VP of everything in IT. And I said, all right, that's going to be another interesting challenge to work at. I think over time I proved myself. I learned all about cybersecurity, because imagine working for a technology company and not knowing anything about what you're selling to your customers, right? That was the first challenge. So I said, well, let's become the best user of our own technology, right?
Eat your own dog food.
Eat your own dog food, something that I've always done in my career. So when I started doing that, it really connected me with the rest of the company. Sales guys, sales engineers, marketing people, everybody had an opinion on that. Why are we not doing this? Why are we not doing that? So suddenly my time spent on cybersecurity grew from 10% to 90%. But the good part of that challenge was it connected me with the rest of the company in a way that I was contributing. I was suddenly contributing to product management, product roadmap, because I was their first customer. I was deploying every single feature that they wanted customers to deploy. I started giving them ideas. Why are you not building this? Why are you not building that? So suddenly I found myself sitting in product roadmap discussions, right? Then I found myself sitting in front of customers because they were running into same deployment challenges that I did. So they wanted to learn from us, right? So my this role inorganically just kept on growing, growing, growing. And then after a while, my friends were asking me, so you're responsible for all IT, you're responsible for all information security. Why is your title not CIO? And I said, great question. Then let me ask the question to my management. So I started bugging them. Then
Which company was this at?
This was MobileIron.
I see.
So I started bugging them, and they had their own deliberations about what's the distinction between the head of IT versus the CIO, and they gave me a couple of milestones. They said, If you start helping, let's say XYZ, if you start generating leads for, if you become the brand ambassador for technology for other CIOs, that you are a proven CIO." I said, let's check on that.
How interesting.
So that's how I ended up becoming the CIO finally there.
I think many of us have faced that, right? Where someone is let go and then you take on your job and you're like, why aren't they paying me more? And why am I not the boss, right?
Yeah.
It happens more often than we realize, but to kind of like grab it by the horns and say,
Yeah.
I'm going to just own it and enjoy it, that's phenomenal. And I think it's taking to the area where I would like to talk more about this, which is you kind of have become one of those few CIOs who leads product in some ways, and the IT function becomes not a cost center if that happens, because now you're actually directing the roadmap of the organization, right?
Yeah.
How welcoming are some of these organizations? What are the signs that you can see before you take a job that tells you that? And or are you the internal agent of change, and how do you make that happen?
So, very interesting question, Mala. You've done your homework. You're asking all the right questions here. So, I have this is my third CIO role, all companies of different kind, but somehow I happen to be the first CIO of all three companies. Two of them public, one private. Some were very clear about what they want from the CIO. Some had very vague idea, but still, all journeys were very, very, very enjoyable. I was talking to you about MobileIron. MobileIron had no idea what a CIO should do. That's why it took me a while to get that title. But they always appreciated my contribution. They finally realized what a CIO actually can do for you, right? Then I joined Automation Anywhere. This is a private company. They had a very clear vision about. They wanted me not only to manage the internal operations and this traditional CIO job. They were also very clear from day one, you are going to be our brand ambassador. You got to help us sell to other CIOs because, CIOs like to talk to other CIOs, right? So again, customer zero was helping me there. This is the first time I was exposed to that kind of media attention in a formal way. At MobileIron, I was getting a lot of attention with customers, but I never really stood up in front of thousands of people and formal keynotes, stuff like that, media interviews. I mean, I was not used to that kind of stuff, right? And sometimes when you start taking on these responsibilities, you start rediscovering yourself. I always thought I was stuck at that job. Turns out I was pretty good, and my confidence started growing. I tell you, before the first webinar that I did with my customers, I probably had sleepless nights. This is the first webinar I'm talking about. And, when I'm uncomfortable, I prepare and prepare and prepare, sometimes to the extent where you should just stop preparing and keep it, just go with the flow. But that is how I was. And then over time, it became so enjoyable and comfortable. I started calling CIOs to my office, other CIOs, as my network was growing. And for a long time at Automation Anywhere, we used to do this event that became very popular in the Bay Area. Every 2 months, I'll invite 10 CIOs from other companies, and we'll just have a really good networking session. We'll talk about the problems top of their head. Hidden agenda was to sell, but it wasn't like direct sell. It was more like, let's talk about the stuff. And by the way, this is how I'm solving the same problems that you guys are trying to solve, right? And then I put this on LinkedIn. Everybody looks at it, and then more people are now suddenly interested in those events. Well,
Right.
how come you're not inviting me, right? So that's the part that I I tried, experimented, and started enjoying it. Automation Anywhere. So a lot of my experience, I'm very thankful to that company to give me that opportunity. BlackLine is a different experience where I'm leveraging what I did at Automation Anywhere, what I did MobileIron, trying to put it all to use at BlackLine. But every job has given me something new to learn.
Yeah, I was at Automation Anywhere as well. And it's funny, right? Our paths have coincided so much. And I was given that opportunity as well. I think it's the culture of the organization.
It is. It is. There are some things they're really good at, especially the marketing side.
Some things were very good. One of the things that was a struggle for sure was IT getting budget to do anything. And I think that's typical of all IT organizations.
Yeah.
And I think there's also the insistence to use Microsoft products, which is just how many of you enjoy Microsoft products? At the, Namrata saying yes to that. So you're trying to do file sharing, email management. It's a total nightmare. Some of you work at Google, I can see with a big smile on your faces there. Right? So how do you deal with that? It feels like, and it's not just at that level. I think there's so many products that people could use when they are, if they can be more um, less fearful of security issues, perhaps, in which case they would actually choose to migrate off old school SAP, even Salesforce, which has become old school now, right? Old school ERP systems and CRM systems so that now they can use bill.com for procure to pay or, like modern SaaS, like and I see that a lot of the modernized SaaS vendors are struggling to hit product market fit in the upper echelons of the Fortune 500 because of this fear as well. So it's a bigger picture I'm trying to see if I can get out of you. What does it take for IT not to be so resource constrained and to be more adaptive of technologies which are modern?
I think the bigger question that you're asking, Mala, is um, how do you enable transformation within an organization? How do you drive a change?
Yeah.
And a lot of times people make an excuse about the budget. I can tell you, every organization that I have worked for, IT was always a G&A organization. G&A organizations always have much stricter controls around cost. So if I just go by the budget that I have, and if that's going to drive my transformation, I will never make any progress. It just never works like that. You're going to get some incremental budget. You're not going to drive Microsoft to Google or whatever AI, transformation. What has worked for me is being a change agent. Budget will follow if there are great ideas. People will throw budget at you if you prove them that your idea works. So, if I have to give you examples, I mean, even right now, when I'm driving at BlackLine, just like Automation Anywhere, I'm responsible for both the AI transformation as well as keeping it safe and secure. AI governance and security is a big topic in everybody's mind, right? So imagine me going to two different meetings and two totally different hacks. One meeting, I go to AI champions and I'm driving. I'm basically asking them to do more with the AI. Then I go to my next AI governance and security meeting and I'm telling them to be careful. Did we think about this? Did you think about that? Right? What are you doing about this? Sounds contradictory, but that's the best part of my job, where I get to see both sides, right? How am I driving transformation with hardly any budget or incremental budget? Um, uh, by one, the first step for me was take a small part of my budget, which I can do through my own rationalization of my, tooling. I mean, CIOs have decent budget; they can always find something for innovation, right? All you need is that something to start and prove the value of transformation. That could be with one function, that could be for your own function, but limit it in that limited way. You 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 create some value, you prove some value, and then you advertise the heck out of it, right? Now certainly marketing knows, sales knows, everybody knows that you have IT has built something that's so interesting, right? And if the idea has value for across the company, the budget will follow. People will share their budget. In fact, I don't even ask for incremental budget for IT because I don't want my GNA budget to look inflated. If I do that, I I attract the attention, negative attention from the board, from management, from everybody. I don't even want to allocate them, right? So I try to keep my budget lean, but then I invest in new ideas across the companies with other departments by requesting budget sharing from them. And they will do it if they believe in my vision and roadmap.
Wow. So you go cross departments in order to negotiate budget
Absolutely.
after experimentation. So how, and this makes me curious on how do you structure your org? Do you have like a team of sleuth IT engineers who will do the experimentation for you? How do you do this work? Or do you do it yourself where you're like downloading latest Claude and
Okay. So traditional structure does not allow to do that. But that's why the first thing I do is anytime I take on the new role at a new company is to create a a part of my organization whose entire job is to drive transformation. You can call it whatever. There's no department of transformation. I mean, you can call it if you like to do that. But I first create a very small team whose entire job is to drive R&D, transformation, innovation, etc. Right? And you can do that in many ways. But that's not difficult to do from my own budget. The difficult thing to do is to scale that across the organization. That's what requires budget, uh, budget from other teams. But I've been so far seeing GTM teams, especially who have the biggest wallets, are generally craving for more innovation, and they will, help with you in these things as long as it's adding value to what they want to.
The more I'm listening to you, it feels like I'm speaking to someone who really thrives in working with constraints and winning. It's kind of like playing a difficult, game of chess against. Actually, for me, it's my husband. My husband better than me at chess, and you're like fighting so hard to win, and you are winning, and that's very unique. And I think that's the world we are in when you think of what's going on with AI, right? So we're almost at time. So I'd love to hear more about just that angle on AI is like driving the world free. It feels like, you don't have to work anymore because you can just, install whatever you like and you get the thing to be automated with no human intervention. That's the promise. But, how do we deal with that against cybersecurity? And, do you like containerize everything? How do you move from there? And how are you playing that game to win so that you're not a laggard when it comes to AI adoption?
So I'm of the view, based on whatever I have experimented, played with so far, I tell my team transformations, any kind of transformations, whether it is AI related or not, in the short term, it's going to increase your work. It's not going to save your work. So if anybody's expecting that me deploying a couple of tools or giving you a few agents or allowing you to build your own agents in the short term is going to save you work and time, I'm so sorry to disappoint you. It is ultimately going to get there, and it's going to be really transformative and productive for you. But it's not going to happen because short term investing, building AI solutions, these things are hard to do and not everybody understands it. Ask the people who are building AI products, they will tell you what it takes to build AI solutions, right? And change is never easy. There's enablement, there is training. And then on top of that, to your point about the risk of cybersecurity, AI governance, driving my teams crazy right now, driving me crazy, right? So short term, I'm convinced if AI is not going to save me any time. Long term, I'm convinced this is the only thing to do, not only for productivity purposes. Forget about productivity. It is the only. This is going to be the way work gets done.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want your organization to be the next generation modern organization who will survive and thrive, I say survive and thrive because you don't even know you're going to survive without AI, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to figure it out. That's going to be exhausting. That's going to be tiring. That's going to be scary, risky. You still have to do it because it is so fulfilling, right? It's enjoyable. That's how I'm trying to motivate my team, right? But not because it's going to save my team, a few hours in a week. Not for that is.
No, but then if you're saying you're going to, you can't not adopt it. Like the developers are the first one to adopt anything in an organization, I think. Aren't they all like, sending off your IP into the world, the wide West in order for them to be able to automate, just figuring out where the bugs are or automate generating code? Are you preventing it? Are you not letting them access the internet? Or what would you do to?
No. Well, we're trying to find a good balance here. I mean, last year we said we're going to give everybody, let's say, Gemini. I mean, Gemini was the thing last year. Don't even get me started on cloud discussion. I'm going to save you guys from that. But we said we're not going to let you deploy and start using whatever comes to your mind because we are a highly regulated company. We're responsible for our customers. Trust and governance is our thing, right? So we said I'm going to block everything, but I'm going to give you Gemini. Every single employee has access to that. This is the baseline product. Everybody can use it. People start building it. We even opened up a citizen development model, right? But we did it in a way where checks and balances and governance and security was ensured. Now the world this year has gotten even crazier because I cannot stop Claude to expand in the company. Suddenly I have a hybrid environment. Right. So I'm rediscovering the same problem, trying to resolve the same problem that I saw last year again. But no, there's no such thing as anybody can go and use any open source or any other, it's not like that. We have to have some discipline within the organization.
Awesome. Well, as you can tell, I can't get enough of Sumit. So, but we are on time. We're actually past our time. So I have to end here. So big round of applause for Sumit.
Thank you. Thank you all. Take care.